Mommy, why are you crying?
No, my daughter, I am not crying. I am praying.
But Mommy, you are crying. I can see the tears ever since you returned from the market.
Everything will be all right.
I was so scared.
I know. I'm here now.
The dry leaf does not fall from the tree unless the branch has let go. But what happens when the leaf refuses to touch the ground because it is protecting the seeds below? You see, the love of a mother is a mystery that even the wisest elders cannot fully explain. It is a fire that burns even when the wood is gone. This is the story of a woman named Adanna. Before we witness the miracle of a mother's sacrifice, a warm welcome to African cinematic tales. We are so happy to have you in our storytelling circle for this sorrowful journey. This is a story of love that crosses the border of death. If you believe that a mother's heart is the heartbeat of the home, please like this video. Tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? And quickly, what is one thing your mother did that you will never forget? Don't forget to subscribe, because today, we are taking you deep into the heart of a woman who refused to say goodbye. Now, let the story begin. To understand why Adanna was crying that night, we must go back. We must go back to a time when the laughter in their house was loud and the fire in their kitchen never went out. Our people say that a house is built by hands, but it is kept standing by a father's strength.
Hug everyone.
The husband of Adanna, a man named Emeka, was a man of the soil. He was a carpenter whose hands could turn rough wood into beautiful chairs. He didn't have gold, but he had peace. When he married Adanna, the village said they were like the sun and the moon, perfectly matched. Together, they brought little Kechi into the world, and later, the little king they called Obina. But you see, the world is a place where the rain does not ask whose roof it is falling on. One afternoon, while working on a roof for a rich man, the wood snapped. Emeka fell. For 3 days, Adanna sat by his side, using her last kobo to buy herbs and medicine. But the breath of a man is like a candle in the wind. When Emeka closed his eyes for the last time, the sun set on the world of Adanna. She was left with a 7-year-old daughter, a 2-year-old son, and a house filled with the smell of sawdust and sorrow. The elders say that when the husband dies, the wife becomes a target for the vultures. Emeka's brothers did not wait for the ground to settle on his grave before they came. They took his tools. They took the motorcycle he used for work. They told Adanna, a woman cannot own a man's sweat. But they forgot one thing. They forgot that the lioness is most dangerous when she is protecting her cubs. Adanna did not cry for long. She wiped her face, tied her wrapper tight, and went to the market. She started by selling small sachets of water. Then she started carrying loads for the rich market women. Slowly, she began to buy fish to resell. For 3 years, she lived on 1 meal a day, so that Kechi could go to school and Obina could have milk. "Mommy, why are your hands so rough?"
Mommy, why are your
Kechi
hands so
would
rough?
ask as she rubbed palm oil on the blistered palms of Adanna at night. My daughter, Adanna, would reply, "These hands are rough, so that your own hands can be smooth and hold a pen. Don't worry about me. As long as you and your brother are safe, I am the happiest woman in Nigeria."
Look at that.
They were happy. They had their secret jokes. They had their evening stories under the moonlight. They were a family that the world couldn't break. But as the days moved toward that fateful Tuesday, the air began to change. Adanna began to feel a heaviness in her chest, a strange feeling that her time of labor was coming to an end. She didn't know that the road to the market was waiting. She didn't know that she was about to face a choice that would make the angels weep. Our people say that the bird that sings too early in the morning does not know that the hawk is already circling the trees. But on this Tuesday, Adanna walked as if the world belonged to her. She had woken up with a heart full of hope, believing that the ancestors had finally wiped the tears from her pillow. You see, the market is a place of many destinies. It is where the sweat of the poor meets the gold of the rich, and for Adanna, it was the battlefield where she fought for the survival of Kechi and Obinna. As she entered the gate of the marketplace, the air was thick with the scent of roasted corn and the music of 1,000 voices. Adanna was a favorite of the market. The sellers called out her name because her smile was like a lamp in a dark room. The elders say that a person who is favored by the gods finds the best prices even in the middle of a famine. Adanna moved through the stalls like a queen visiting her garden. She laughed with the vegetable sellers, her voice dancing above the noise of the crowd. She touched the yams to feel their strength and smelled the peppers to ensure their fire. She was buying not just food, but joy. Every tuber of yam she placed in her basket was a promise to Kechi that she would never go to bed hungry again. She spent a long time at the stall of the biscuit seller. She picked up a pack of pink-coated biscuits, the ones that Obinna called the sugar of the sun. She held them to her chest and smiled, imagining the way the boy would dance around her legs when she returned. She even found a bright ribbon for the hair of Kechi, a small piece of beauty for a girl who had known too much hardship. By the time the sun was sitting directly over her head, the basket of Adanna was a treasure chest. It was heavy with the harvest of her hard work. She began the journey back, her feet rhythmic against the dry earth. She was humming a song of thanksgiving, a song that her husband used to whistle when the harvest was good. But listen to me carefully, the elders say that the road does not tell the traveler what lies around the corner. The same road that leads you to the market can be the same road that leads you to the ancestors. As Adanna approached the great highway, her mind was already at home. She was already peeling the yams in her mind, she was already hearing the laughter of her children. She did not see the shadow of the great truck. She did not know that the wind had suddenly turned cold. In a single heartbeat, the music of her humming was replaced by the screech of metal and the thunder of a crash. The basket of treasures was scattered to the four winds. The peppers were crushed into the dust, and the pink biscuits, the pride of a mother's heart, lay broken under a heavy tire. Adanna, the pillar that held the world for her orphans, was cast into the dirt. The sun was still shining, and the birds were still singing, but the light had gone out of the house of the widow. The excitement of the morning had turned into the bitterness of the grave, leaving behind a silence that would soon scream in the ears of her waiting children. The elders say that the ears of the living are deaf to the screams of the departed, but the eyes of the world are never closed to a tragedy. In an instant, the peaceful road became a theater of sorrow. People ran from their shops, and drivers stepped out of their cars, their faces twisted with a pity that came too late. "Oh, look at this woman," a vegetable seller cried, covering her mouth with her wrapper. "Is this not Adanna? The one who just bought fish from me, not 30 minutes ago?" The air was filled with the sound of clicking tongues and heavy sighs. Men stood with their hands on their heads, and women wept for a sister they barely knew. Someone picked up the crushed pack of biscuits and shook their head, whispering about the children, who were surely waiting at home for a treat they would never taste. But you see, the mystery of life is like a coin tossed into the tall grass. While the crowd was busy crying over the body in the dust, the real Adanna was standing just a few feet away. She was reaching out, trying to touch the woman who was mourning her.
Help me!
She was screaming, "I am here. Help me pick up my yams. My children are hungry." But her voice was like the sound of a feather falling on stone. No one heard her. Her hands passed through the shoulders of the onlookers, like smoke through a doorway. It was then that the cold truth began to wrap around her soul. She looked at her own body, lying still and broken, and she realized that the thread had been snapped. Suddenly, the noise of the crowd began to fade, turning into a sound like the rushing of a great river. The highway disappeared, and Adanna found herself standing in a place where there is no sun and no moon, the place where the breath goes when it leaves the body. Before her stood the great gate, and beside it were the Watchers of the Mist. Their eyes were as old as the mountains, and their voices were like the wind in a deep cave. Adanna. They spoke, and the sound vibrated in her very bones. Your labor on earth has ended. The road has claimed what was lent to the world. You are free to cross the river and find the peace that has eluded you since your husband departed. But Adanna fell to her knees, her ghostly tears hitting the spirit ground. How can I find peace when my children's stomachs are empty? How can I rest when Kechi is waiting at the door and Obinna is calling my name? If I leave now, the wolves will devour them. The Watchers looked at each other, and for a moment, even the spirit world was silent. The laws of the grave are iron, they replied, but a mother's cry has a key that can turn any lock. We will give you 7 days. But listen carefully, for the spirit world does not give gifts without a price. You must choose one of two paths. If you choose the path of the silent shadow, you will return to your house. Your children will see you, they will feel your touch, and you can comfort them for 7 nights. But the rest of the world will be blind to you. You will be a ghost to your neighbors, and you cannot ask any living soul to help your orphans. When the 7th day ends, you will vanish, and they will be alone. But if you choose the path of the wandering plea, you will walk the streets as a spirit that the world can see. You can beg the rich for mercy, and lead a stranger to your children's door. But to your own children, you will be invisible. They will cry for a mother who does not come, and they will never know that you were standing right beside them, while they starved. The elders say that a mother's heart is the only compass that never loses its way. Adanna looked back at the world of the living, and then at the dark river of death. She thought of Obinna's small hands, and the wise eyes of Kechi. She did not ask about her own peace. She only thought of the warmth of a hug, and the power of a final goodbye. Let me go to my children, she whispered. Let them see me for 7 more suns. They say a mother's love is the only bridge that death cannot break. But look at Adanna, standing between the warmth of life and the cold of the grave. The ancestors have spoken. She has chosen the hardest path, to return to Kechi and Obinna as a spirit. To the world, she will be nothing but a whisper in the wind or a shadow in the night, unseen and unheard by all others. But for her children, she will be the invisible hand that shields them, and the ghostly touch that comforts their sleep. Let us take a moment to reflect on Adanna's journey as she prepares to return to the land of the living. Look into her eyes and ask yourself, what would you sacrifice for the ones you love? And with a flash of white light, the crossroads disappeared. Adanna was no longer on the highway. She was standing at the entrance of her own compound, the evening breeze blowing through her translucent wrapper. She saw the light of the kerosene lamp flickering in the window. She saw Kechi sitting on the porch, looking at the road with a worried face. The first day was already half gone. The clock of the dead was ticking, and Adanna stepped into her home to begin the most painful 7 days a mother has ever known. Our people say that the dog does not recognize the shadow of its master, it only knows the scent of the man who feeds it. But the love between a mother and her children is a frequency that even the ears of the spirit can tune into. As the sun began to hide its face behind the iroko trees, a heavy silence fell over the compound, a silence that was broken only by the sound of the heartbeat of Kechi. The elders say that a child's intuition is a mirror that reflects the unseen. Kechi had been sitting on the wooden porch for hours, her eyes fixed on the path that led from the highway. She had seen other mothers return with their baskets, she had heard the laughter of neighbors coming back from the trade. But her mother's silhouette was missing from the horizon. "Mommy is late," Obinna whispered, clutching his tattered alphabet book. "The moon is coming out, and my stomach is making the sound of a drum." "Hush, Obinna," Kechi replied, though her own hands were shaking. "Mommy said the market would be kind today. Perhaps the load is too heavy, and she is walking slowly." But listen to me carefully. At that very moment, Adanna was standing just 3 feet away from them. She reached out to touch the head of Kechi, but her hand felt like a cold mist against the girl's skin. The greatest pain of a mother is not dying, it is being right there in the room, watching her daughter cry, and realizing her hands can no longer wipe away those tears. Kechi shivered and rubbed her arms, looking around the empty yard. "The wind is strange tonight," the girl murmured. "It feels like someone is breathing on my neck." It was then that Adanna remembered the words of the Vultures. She had to manifest. She had to gather every ounce of her maternal will to push through the veil of the dead. She closed her eyes and screamed their names in her heart, and suddenly, the air in the compound thickened. Obinna was the first to see her. He let out a yelp of joy and pointed toward the kitchen door. "Mommy, you are back." Kechi jumped up, her eyes wide. There stood Adanna. She looked as she did in the morning, but her clothes were too clean, and her feet did not touch the dust of the ground. She was there, yet she was not there. But to a hungry, frightened child, a mother is a mother, whether she comes from the market or the grave. They ran to her, throwing their arms around her waist. Adanna felt a sharp, piercing pain in her spirit as they touched her. To the children, she felt a bit cold, like water from a clay pot, but they were too happy to care. "Mommy, where is your basket?" Kechi asked, looking at her mother's empty hands. "And why are you so pale? Are you sick?" Adanna sat on the low stool, the very stool where she used to peel yams. She pulled them close, her heart breaking into 1,000 pieces. This was the moment of the great lie. This was the beginning of the 7-day mask. "I am only tired, my children," Adanna whispered, her voice sounding like the rustle of dry leaves. The road was long, and the market was crowded. "I had to leave the basket with a friend, because it was too heavy for me to carry tonight." She looked at Obinna, who was searching her pockets for the pink biscuits. She had to turn her head away, so they wouldn't see the blood-red tears of a ghost. She had no food. She had no money. She had only 7 days of borrowed time, and a house that was about to become a tomb of hunger if she did not find a way to reach the living. The elders say that the person who is drowning does not complain about the temperature of the water. Adanna spent that first night holding them, singing the songs their father used to love, and watching the moon move across the sky. Every time the clock in the parlor ticked, she felt a piece of her soul fading. She looked at the door, knowing that outside, the village was already whispering about an accident on the highway. She knew that by morning, the news would reach her compound. She knew that people would come to find her children. But because of her choice, those people would see an empty house. They would see 2 orphans sitting alone, because to the eyes of the world, Adanna was already lying in the cold room of a hospital. "Day 1 is swallowed by the night," the ancestors whispered. And the mother who chose to be a shadow must now learn how to fight for the living, while she belongs to the dead. Our people say that a mother is not just a person, she is a miracle wrapped in a wrapper. You see, when a woman enters the spirit world with the hunger of her children on her mind, the heavens must give her a way to provide. They say that the spoon of a ghost does not lack soup, and the fire of a mother's spirit can cook a meal, even without firewood. As the second morning broke, Adanna looked at the empty hearth in her kitchen. She saw Kechi looking at the empty pot with tears in her eyes, and she saw little Obinna chewing on his finger, because the stomach has no understanding of death. The elders say that the love of a mother is the greatest juju in the world. Adanna stood in the center of the kitchen and closed her eyes. She reached out her hands into the empty air, calling upon the strength of her ancestors and the love she bore for her husband's children. "I am Adanna," she whispered, her voice vibrating like a gong. "I did not come back to watch my seeds wither. If I cannot buy from the market of the living, let the market of the spirits open for me." Listen to me carefully. A strange thing began to happen. A cold, sparkling mist began to fill the small kitchen. Suddenly, the empty sack of rice in the corner began to swell, as if invisible hands were filling it with the finest grains. The empty bottle of oil on the shelf began to overflow with gold, and the smell of fresh fish, fresh from the celestial rivers, began to waft through the house. Kechi rubbed her eyes in wonder. "Mommy, look. I thought we were out of food, but the bags are full. And the fire, look at the fire." The wood in the stove had caught flame on its own, burning with a bright, blue light that gave off no smoke. Adanna smiled, her face glowing with a heavenly light. She took the wooden spoon, and though her hands were mist, the spoon obeyed her. She began to cook a meal that smelled like paradise. A mother's love has opened the gates of the spirit world, but at what cost? Adanna has defied the laws of death to save her children, but every miracle has a price. As she pours her essence into their bowls, we must ask, how much of her soul is left to give? If this story touched your heart, like and share this video to honor the strength of all mothers. Don't miss the conclusion of Adanna's sacrifice. Subscribe and turn on notifications now. Part 2 is coming soon. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.